Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Faster my good evening. Welcome to Update, a roundup of what's been happening news-wise on the Isle of Man today. Coming up before 5:30, more about those bus cancellations at the weekend and why there could be more problems over the next few days. Also on the programme, what do we know about Manx Care's projected overspend, and a permanent tribute to airmen who died on the Isle of Man during World War II has been installed at Port Sodric. All that, and as ever, if there's anything you need to know road-wise as you head home tonight, we'll keep you up to date on that. And if you'd like to get in touch, we really would love to hear from you. You can text the studio 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First though, let's join Chanel for a roundup of today's main news headlines.
Bus Vannin has admitted it's expecting difficulties for filling some services again this weekend. It's being blamed on staff shortages with a number of vacancies and long-term absentees. Manx Care is now forecasting a £16.8 million overspend for this financial year. That's an improved picture compared to figures given in July, when the health body was expected to go over by £18.7 million. At the latest board meeting, members said things such as pay awards are adding pressures to the finances. And a member of the Special Olympics Isle of Man team is making the step into mainstream football on the island. Dylan Butler, who's been involved with the Olympic team for the last 4 years, has begun training with Pulrose United. In international news, around 5,000 people are thought to have had their personal details stolen during a cyber attack on the Transport for London network. A 17-year-old boy has been arrested following the hack at the beginning of the month. The UK Prime Minister says the NHS has suffered a lost decade as he set out reform plans. Announcing a wide-ranging report on the health service, Sir Keir Starmer says it's broken but not beaten. And it's understood the hearing into Manchester City's 115 Premier League charges will begin next week. The defending champions deny breaching financial rules and failing to comply with investigations. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thanks very much, Chanel. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It's going to be dry and sunny this evening. It will still be quite breezy though, with that fresh north to northwest wind. Dry overnight, clear spells as that wind gradually falls light, and minimum temperatures overnight will only be around 6 or 7. Tomorrow, dry and bright sunny intervals, but it is going to turn cloudy during the afternoon and there might be some rain developing overnight. The wind will be light and variable, settling to the south or southwest and freshening during the evening. Highs tomorrow will be around 13. And then Saturday, mostly dry and fairly cloudy, and there will again be some rain overnight on Saturday, with top temperatures on Saturday of around 15. Sunset this evening will be at 7:41. Sunrise tomorrow morning 6:49.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
See the island like you've never seen it before on an incredible chauffeur-driven trike tour. A unique way to make memories that will last a lifetime. Gift vouchers available too. See iomtriketours.com for details and booking.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
Firestone Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 496667.
It's coming up to 5:05. Lovely to have your company here on Update. And as we've just been hearing, Bus Vannin has admitted it's expecting difficulties fulfilling some services again this weekend. It's being blamed on staff shortages, as Amy Griffiths reports.
Last weekend, 23 services were unable to operate, which is said to have been lower than those highlighted as being at risk. Now the bus provider says it's likely there'll be issues again tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. If a service is highlighted as being at risk and then can be covered, further updates will be posted to Bus Vannin's Facebook page. It says the problem's down to the fact that the current timetable needs drivers to work overtime, particularly at weekends. And last weekend it wasn't possible to secure enough drivers to run the full service. Overtime is optional, and many staff have continued to work additional hours to support the service in recent weeks. A driver's hours must also be kept within daily and weekly agreed limits for safety reasons. Due to current agreements, it can be less than 24 hours before a service is due to run when it becomes clear it cannot be filled. Also, Bus Vannin says 3 long-standing private bookings last weekend were honoured, but they were driven by office-based staff, not regular bus drivers. A recruitment campaign is set to be underway to fill the 10 full-time vacancies Bus Vannin currently has out of the 92 drivers it needs. Claims that 13 staff members have walked out are said to be inaccurate. Bus Vannin's apologised for the disruption and is advising customers to use findmybus.im to track buses or call the Welcome Centre on 686 801.
Amy reporting there. Meanwhile, Onken MHK Julie Edge says she's never known such disruption to the island's travel routes. Now, she's not just talking about buses, but also boats and flights as well. And she's now calling for an extra sitting of the House of Keys to discuss the urgent matter and the impact it's having on residents.
Clearly, we've got a significant strategic issue, and it's of national importance, our connectivity to the island. You know, we are all islanders, and I've lived here all my life, and I've never known such disruption, whether it's with our boats, the airports, or certainly with our local transport. So I do think it should be a priority for my colleagues. I have contacted a number of them. Some have come back to me, and obviously my Onken colleague has said he would support it if we were to get the right outcomes. That's what we're all looking for, is the right outcomes, strategic direction and reliability for our connectivity off and on the island.
Why do you not think it's a priority? What impact is it having as well?
Well, clearly it's having a massive impact on our businesses, on the economy, on our visitor economy as well. So obviously it's down as an action on the government programme next week. And it says to improve our island's transportation links, which are vital for our economic and social development. And that the 2 ministers for DOI and DFE will present on the Isle of Man's strategic ambitions. I'm sorry, we've got more than ambitions. We just need reliability. We need services and we need supplies to the Isle of Man for our businesses, for all of our people and for anybody that is looking to come to the island. We're not even getting newspapers. The post isn't getting here on time. So it's a significant national issue, I feel, and I do hope that all my colleagues are receiving the same concerns from their constituents.
Now, you were part of the Council of Ministers from October 2021 up until earlier this year. So some people might say that actually whilst you were in Comyn, these problems were occurring. Why did you not do more about this and sort of make these protestations then?
Well, clearly I have been very vocal about this, whether that's behind closed doors or now I'm being very vocal for the public. Connectivity has always been one of my top priorities. It was certainly in my manifesto that we needed to make sure we had a proper transport strategy for the island. And connectivity, I've always mentioned, I've always said it should be a top priority, being islanders. We're going to be discussing it next week at the government conference. I'm hopeful there's some answers, but what I want is action. And I think that's what the people of the island want now. We've had enough talk. We want some action.
Julie Edge, MHK, talking to Lewis and Ben live on Breakfast this morning. We have invited government to comment if they want to do so before the government conference next week. 9 minutes past 5. Manx Care is now forecasting a £16.8 million overspend for this financial year. Lewis has the details.
A lot of money, but go back to July and believe it or not, that figure was higher. Just shy of £2 million higher, to be exact, at £18.7 million. That much over the health services budget this year, which comes in at just under £347 million. In February, Treasury had to ask Tynwald for an additional £30 million to cover Manx Care's overspend for the 2023 to 24 financial year. And following this year's budget, the Chief Minister warned Manx Care must deliver within its budget for the 2024 to 25 period. So a lot at stake. At the latest board meeting, members said things such as pay awards are adding pressure to the finances. However, it's thought the deficit can be brought down by a further £11 million approximately. Wendy Reid, Manx Care's chair, has this outlook.
Yeah, I am new here, so I can say that I think we're in a better position this year than we've ever been in terms of the detailed analysis that the Finance Committee has done. Thank you. I think we're in a better position in terms of our transparency with our department colleagues and therefore the Treasury. But we are trying to turn a tanker here in terms of not just our understanding and our spend, but also our process of budgeting.
Well, giving the latest update at Manx Care's board meeting, Finance Director Jackie Lawless said they are now looking at further opportunities to make savings. She says that leaves them with a remaining gap of around £6 million to get back to balance.
Lewis Foster reporting. You can find out more about this story at manxradio.com. Just gone 5:10 and just wanted to let you know about something that's happening this evening. A professor at the University of Liverpool and the lead for neurosurgical oncology at the Walton Centre is on the Isle of Man. Professor Andrew Broadbelt will be delivering a talk at the Empress Hotel at 7 p.m, and this is about brain tumours, ways to improve pathways and treatments. He stopped by Manx Radio a little earlier.
First thing to say is there is time for questions, lots of time for questions, because I think that's really important, and I'm keen to understand what topics people want me to cover. The aim of the talk is firstly to just talk about what is a brain tumour, what does that mean, so people are all on the same page about what these things are, about the principles of treatment, because we treat them slightly different than cancers or tumours elsewhere, and obviously it has big effects on people having a tumour in their brain. And I suppose I want to think about some of the other things that affect people with tumours and how that can affect them in the future. Basic science affects people in the future in many years' time. You know, if you're doing research in a petri dish or on cells, then it might take 10 or 20 years for that to actually make a difference for people in the future. And then you've got the clinical trials, and there's some new clinical trials that are ongoing and some very exciting recent ones. And that affects people much more. But I'm interested in pathways to actually help people now to try and improve what happens to them, how they're looked after, and the sort of investigations and treatment they get.
That is Professor Andrew Broadbelt from the Walton Centre, and this Meet the Consultant event is hosted by the Nassim's Manx Brain Tumour Charity. As I say, it's starting at 7 p.m. at the Empress Hotel, and it's free for anyone to attend. 5:12. Let's turn our attention to business thanks to Ramsey Crookall. And we've heard that the Isle of Man Post Office has launched a new online postage service, which they say will offer customers flexibility and convenience in managing their postal needs. So it's going to be accessible to anyone with an internet connection. It's available 24/7, and there will also be free home collection for an introductory period, with those collections integrated into existing delivery routes. The number of larger post boxes that can accommodate larger parcels is also being increased, they say, and this service includes printed labels for those without a printer, and Isle of Man Post says there will be an increased option for parcel drop-offs. Post CEO Simon Neen says the service will help align with customer demand and sustainability goals, and you can find the link to start using online postage in Manx Radio's Business News section. Well, turning our attention to the stock market report brought to us by Ramsey Crookall, they tell us that UK and European stocks closed higher as investors in the region digested the European Central Bank's move to further ease monetary policy. Wall Street, though, that trading there got off to a mixed start as traders digested more inflation data following yesterday's Consumer Price Index report. Gold prices rose more than 1% to hit a record high. That was helped by expectations of an interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve next week. Oil prices rose over 2%, extending a rebound spurred by concern over Hurricane Francine's impact on US output through a gloomy demand outlook to cap gains. And in corporate news, Microsoft is cutting 650 jobs from its video game division. That's according to a company email seen by the Wall Street Journal today. Looking at the prices and the commodities, gold up 1.68% at $2,553. Brent up 2.79% at $72.66. And at the close, the FTSE 100 was up 0.53% at 8,237. And a short time ago, the Dow Jones was trading up 0.01% at 40,865. And the Nasdaq was up 0.61% at 17,499.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge. Rubbish.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsay Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsay Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramsaycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, all looking fairly normal down at the steam packet this evening, and at the airport just a little bit of a delay on the Manchester flight, but nothing else to worry about. And as far as we know on the roads, unless you know any different, everything seems to be okay. Just be aware of those temporary lights replacing the main lights of the Brown Bobby. They are there 24 hours a day. If you do spot anything, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
It's just gone 5:15. A permanent tribute has been installed at Port Sodrick in memory of airmen who died on the Isle of Man while undergoing training during the Second World War. Heroes on the Water unveiled the special bench at Barracuda Bay last night to recognise the 22 deaths which happened while the men were taking part in dive and torpedo bomber training. Colin Kelsey, the chair of the Armed Forces Day Organising Committee, and Bill Walton, who volunteers for the Manx charity, says this is a story that needs to be told.
It could be argued that this bench should have been, or something similar, should have been set up years ago. But it's nice that somebody spotted the sacrifice that 22 people made towards the end of the Second World War, and now we're seeing something that is a permanent reminder of that. There is a brass plaque on it which will describe the reason for it being here, and hopefully generations to come will stop and think.
We decided between all of us that rather than the usual stone or cross or whatever, we thought if we have a nice bench made in the shape of the aircraft, people will then know what it looked like. And also, obviously, it's got a practical function. People can sit on it and use it. The other thing we're intending to do shortly is put a QI code on it so that people can scan it and get the full story of the Barracuda and the story of the Fleet Air Arm on the island during the Second World War. I believe most of them, it was training accidents. And of course, in that time, training accidents were covered up. Rightly or wrongly, they were covered up. But these days there are still training accidents, but they're much more acknowledged, and I think it just needs to be out there that there are a lot of people that didn't actually serve on the front line, you know, on the coalface as such, but they were no less important. They were these young men were training to go and fight the Japanese. It was only the intervention of the atomic bomb that stopped that, so they were preparing to go and fight a war, and I think they deserve that recognition.
They certainly do. Bill Walton and Colin Kelsey there. You can find out much more about this story at manxradio.com, and you can also see the video of the bench, which, as I say, is shaped like an aircraft, being unveiled. Very moving. 17 minutes past 5. Now, there's been a conference on the island focused on the issue of domestic abuse over the past couple of days. And the aim has been really to break down taboos of talking about such violence and openly discuss the help that's available for anyone who may be affected. It's been attended by some incredible campaigners who've either been victims themselves or have been close to someone who was. One of them was Diana Parks, whose daughter Joanna was killed 14 years ago.
My daughter Jo was brought up on the island and lived here, and very sadly her estranged husband killed her in October 31st, Halloween 2010. Never leaves you. The wound heals, but the scar remains.
When it came out that your daughter had been experiencing abuse from her estranged husband for years, were you aware of that at the time? Did she confide in you?
Well, in 2007, July the 17th, he attacked her with a knife. And she said to him, "What'll happen if you kill me?" And he said, "You'll be dead, I'll be in prison." There was absolutely no mention of what would happen to the children. He then went off to the spare bedroom. She managed to talk him out of killing her. And he said, "I expect you're going to ring the police and ruin my career." He was a captain, a British Airways captain. And she didn't phone the police, but she phoned a friend who wanted to phone the police. This was late at night. This was about 11 o'clock at night. And she didn't want the children to know what he'd done to her, which when you look back, would have been so much easier than what did happen to her.
You were adamant that you wanted this to be in the public eye and you wanted people to be talking about Jo and about what happened to her. How do you find the strength to do that?
If we hadn't campaigned, he would have been coming out of jail last November the 6th without going through the parole board, because that was his sentence. He was given 26 years and a determinate sentence, which meant he only served 13 years, would come out of jail without going through the parole board and be on licence for 13 years. Who would monitor him for 13 years? The probation service sadly is broken. There just aren't the people to care.
You mentioned your grandchildren. How are they now?
They're brilliant. I love them to bits, and they've been my salvation, to be honest. I don't know how I would have coped without them.
That is Diana Parks, the mother of Joanne Simpson, a victim of domestic abuse who was killed 14 years ago. I mean, Diana is just an incredible woman. She's so eloquent and she's done so much to raise a profile about domestic violence, and she was awarded a CBE in the King's New Year's Honours List back in January. It's gone 5:20. Now, the Isle of Man remains a source of fascination for those with extensive family histories, as one woman from Canada has spent nearly half a century tracing her heritage. Leslie Erdman travelled to the island in hopes of seeing some of the places her ancestors once lived. And before the internet, she spent countless hours painstakingly sifting through records, searching for small pieces of information that might reveal secrets about her origins. Leslie's been talking to Christian ahead of taking a tour around the island.
On my mother's side, the family came from the Isle of Man. Andres, Bride, Douglas, Kirkmichael. My great-great-grandmother was born in Andres, and her and my great-great-grandfather got married in Bride in 1866.
1860. And so have you tracked that through one of these ancestry systems?
I have, for about 45 years, though. It's taken a long time. And then I hooked up with a guy named, his name is Greg Kagan, and he did a one-name study and of all the Kagans through DNA has linked everybody. It's very fascinating and very exciting for me.
You've spent 45 years effectively tracking parts of your heritage and your family history.
Exactly, yes.
How have you been able to do that?
Well, initially, when I started years ago, you had to order in the records, and you had to do it through microfiche and microfilm, painstakingly slow, before there was internet and ancestry and stuff that was on there. So it would take a very long time. You'd find one tiny little piece and be so excited that you found that one tiny little piece. It could be so minute, but you'd come home from the library and be so excited that you found that one piece.
And do you know anything about your relatives here? You mentioned that you know where one of them was born. Do you know anything about them, like their career history?
So some of the careers they were working at are like a weaver, a maltster labourer.
And where does Canada fit into all of it? Who branched out far enough that Canada became part of the equation?
It would be my great-grandparents that came to Canada, mainly because my great-grandmother's family was all coming to Canada. So they all kind of got into Vancouver within a year of each other.
That is Leslie Erdman, who came over here in the hopes of, we say, as seeing some of the places her ancestors once lived. She's got a fantastic accent as well. Just incredible. And I don't know if you've ever done any of the family history sort of side of things, but you can get completely immersed in it. I started doing it during lockdown, and it just gets to a point where you're so confused about who's on what side once you get back to a certain point that I think it could possibly be a full-time job. In fact, Rob Pritchard, I think that might be what I'll go and do. Shall I go and do that?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
You're supposed to say no, but that's okay. Rob, sport-wise, what's happening?
Well, we'll start with athletics, and Isle of Man endurance athlete Nikki Arthur has claimed an impressive top 20 finish during recent international competition in Europe. Representing Great Britain, Nikki Arthur claimed 15th place in the women's race during the 70km Sky Ultra event at the 2024 Sky Running World Championships in Soraya, Spain on the 7th of September. Well, Arthur went on to complete the gruelling course, which included 4,350 metres of vertical climb in a time of 10 hours, 22 minutes and 6 seconds. Well, so far in 2024, Arthur has excelled in other endurance events, including winning the women's class in the Spine Challenger North class at the Brutal Spine Race competition in January. Elsewhere, she was also the fastest female Manx runner at this year's London Marathon in April in a time of 2 hours 55 minutes and 31 seconds. Elsewhere, a member of the Special Olympics Isle of Man team is making the step into mainstream football on Ireland. Dylan Butler, who's been involved with the Olympic team for the last 4 years, has begun training with Pulrose United. The Isle of Man Football Association is congratulating Butler, who has previously represented Special Olympics Isle of Man at 3 national games in Gibraltar, claiming a gold medal during that time. Well, meanwhile, Dylan's coach and Isle of Man FA Disability Football Ambassador Peter Corker lads, they are delighted for Dylan and look forward to seeing him breaking into his new side. Well, also in football, 2 teams made commanding starts to the new Isle of Man Under-18 League season last night. Corinthians were 9-1 winners over Laxey, whilst Douglas High School Old Boys romped to a 9-0 victory over Governors Athletic. And finally, Isle of Man darts players Darren Kennish and Callum Brew will be among the top seeds for 2 World Para events taking place at the start of 2025. Both have qualified for places at the latest editions of the World Para Darts World Masters and World Para Darts World Championships being held in Chelmsford, Essex from the 3rd to the 5th of January next year. Well, Kennish will be the 2nd seed in the wheelchair players category and is 2nd in the international wheelchair rankings across the 23-24 season, only behind Belgium's Vinnie de Hont. Meanwhile, Brew will be the 16th seed in the standing players class, having secured 16th place in the standing players rankings across the latest campaign.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. Some fantastic sports news over the past 24 hours. Oh, do we know what's happening Billy Harris-wise next?
Yes, so for just a little bit of context for those who missed it this week, Billy Harris, the former Castletown Lawn and Albany Lawn player, made his Davis Cup debut for Great Britain yesterday, winning in straight sets against Finlow's Otto Virtanen. The Davis Cup, for those not familiar necessarily with tennis, it's considered to be effectively the World Cup of tennis, so a huge stage to be competing on, and he's at a career-high best ATP ranking at the moment. World rankings are 101st. Well, he and Great Britain will be returning to action tomorrow in their second group stage game against Argentina before their final group game against Canada on Sunday.
Well, we wish him all the very best. Thank you very much indeed, Rob. And that is all from Update this evening. Thank you for your company. Remember, you can always contact us in the newsroom. You can email newsroom@manxradio.com. And for much more on all tonight's stories, you can go to the Manx Radio website and do check out that good news story section as well. Coming up next, it's the Archive Room with Judith Lay. And if you haven't heard this programme yet, you are in for an absolute treat. And when you want to hear more, you can go to the podcast section at manxradio.com. Then from 6 p.m, Chris Kinley will be here live with Greatest Hits, the perfect way to unwind after what might have been a stressful day for you. And that'll take you nicely to a little light music with Morris Powell from 9, and then After Hours with Rhiann Evans. So lots to look forward to on Manx Radio this evening. The news team will be back from 6 tomorrow with breakfast. I'll be here from 5 tomorrow with Update. Whatever you're doing for the rest of your evening, it is fairly sunny out there. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.